My name is Matthew Milasius, and I work for InTouch Manufacturing Services. My company is actually based right here in Shenzhen, in Shanghai specifically. So if you're ever out in the area, come and give us a visit. But we've been out here since 2008. We've been helping importers with their product quality, not actually just in China, but across Asia at large. And in that time, we've observed some unfortunate circumstances, some horror stories, if you will. And we really hope that by telling you about them tonight, you can avoid becoming one. Before I really jump into the horror stories, I want to mention that we've got this free book on improving your product quality. In case you can't see it in the back, it's called How Experienced Importers Limit Product Defects in 3 Stages. If you scan this QR code, you can get it for free, no strings attached. And if you can't get it for whatever reason, if it's not scanning, no problem. Just come and find me afterwards. I will make sure you get it. I will make sure, if you can't get it, I'll send a pigeon to deliver to you. Anyway, on to the juicy stuff. Let's start with the horror stories. So, I want to start off actually with this quote. We had to make a difficult decision to briefly pause shipping in the name of quality. Now, whether you're a big corporation, small first-time importer, a hardware startup, no matter who you are, this is a really awful thing to say. No one wants to disappoint their customers. But can anyone take a guess as to who said this? I'll give you a hint. This was said by a Kickstarter campaign. Any guesses? Going once? Every single one. That's not such a bad guess, actually. But this is a statement by ANSI Labs. Who's ANSI Labs? They're the original makers of the Fidget Cube. In case you don't know what a Fidget Cube is, no problem. This is a Fidget Cube. Looks like just a simple piece of plastic, right? Well, actually, this is one of the most successful Kickstarters in the platform's history. This little piece of plastic raised approximately $6.5 million. Not such a laughing stock. But what made ANSI Labs say that quote that I just showed you? Well, some people, like this man on Kickstarter, speculate the Chinese manufacturer made the cubes wrong and ANSI wouldn't buy them. So the manufacturer offloaded them and they're now being sold online as knockoffs. So if you're familiar with all the other aspects of quality control, not just looking at the product and saying, yes, this is right or not, you'll also identify that this is an IP issue because potentially the Chinese manufacturer sold the design and or faulty products out the back door. Sounds like a disaster, right? And definitely some of them ended up online. You can see here, I actually can't see very well even this close, that for this first listing on Alibaba, there were over 316 transactions for Fidget Cubes in the last 6 months. For the second one, it's over 30 cubes, or 30 orders. That's a lot of fidgeting. I actually didn't think people could fidget that much or would want to buy so many Fidget Cubes. But really, this is a horror story because of a few reasons, actually. Number one, the products didn't meet ANSI Labs' requirements. Of course, the manufacturer thought, yeah, we can sell these online on places like Alibaba, Amazon. We can sell them to places like Louisville Commercial Center, a notorious fake goods market. But to the importer themselves, they were not happy with the product quality. Number two, it was potentially a big IP issue because they were being sold out the back door. 3, well, there's also the fact that ANSI Labs, they had diluted brand image because they weren't anymore the only people doing this. And 4, and personally I think this is the worst part, they didn't become millionaires. The Fidget Cube, I mean, it's just a piece of plastic, but there's so much interest in this. So many people want to buy these that they could have really done well in business. But really, we've touched on how bad this story is, but how do you prevent yourself from becoming that? How do you prevent ANSI Labs' situation happening to you? Well, there's actually 2 things you can do. The first thing is what's called a DUPRO inspection. And a DUPRO inspection stands for during production. And it occurs anywhere from 15 to 80% of a product's cycle completion. So, for example, let's say you've got a product and you're not so sure about its quality. You've kind of got some second guesses as to what's going on in the factory. So you go in at 20% of the order's completion and you look at the product and say, okay, is this meeting my standards? Does this dimension check out? Are these colors right? Etc. You make sure things are as they should be. There's actually one other thing that they could have done to fix this. But it's not really a preventative measure, it's an afterthought. It's one of those things that you can only do after the problems happen. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to ask, can anyone tell me what good a steamroller is in QC? This 22-ton steamroller, it's pretty big.
Oh yes!
Yeah, right? I think he's got the right idea. Can anyone guess what a steamroller can do in QC? Okay, yeah, exactly. You're right on the money. It can destroy things, like these earbuds. What you're looking at right here is a supervised product destruction for an order of several thousand earbuds that were not to spec. Specifically, the problem was that the colors, I think they look pretty beautiful, but to the actual importer, these were not on spec. In addition, the problem was that the sound quality was just crap. It was staticky, it was not clear. And so, because the branding was still on these, and it was just not a good product, the importer, they came to us and they're like, okay, can you supervise this destruction? And so what we did was we arranged this 22-ton steamroller to come in and annihilate the hell out of all these earbuds. Personally, I wish I could have been driving the steamroller because I think that would have been a cool bucket list item to scratch off, have destroyed 10,000 earbuds with a steamroller, but unfortunately I wasn't around at the time. Let's look at another example. Some fitness gloves. Looks like just some normal fitness gloves, right? Well, this is what they look like after going through an industrial shredder. Several thousand of them, in fact. So it's going to be a little hard to show you what's wrong with these because I've got this mic and this clicker in my hand. But the problem with these was that the logo was on vertically when it should go on horizontally. So if you look at my hand, it's facing upright. That's the direction of where the logo is, and it should have been across like that. So the importer said to us, okay, we can't sell these. We don't want them to end up in places like Louisville Commercial Center, on Alibaba, on Amazon. Please destroy them. And so we arranged this giant shredder to come in and destroy all of them. And I think what's really important in the case of each of these three products, in the case of the fidget cube, in the case of the earbuds, and also in the case of these gloves, a DuPro inspection could have done wonders here. Even if they had done it at around 50%, they could have saved half their order from getting destroyed. And I think for any importer, for any company, that's pretty agonizing. To watch all your products just go down the drain, or to go through a shredder. That's a lot of wasted money, it's a lot of wasted time, it's a lot of wasted effort. The next thing I want to talk about is this beautiful speaker. I mean, I personally think this thing is pretty damn sexy. I'd buy one for my mom, for my dad, for my sister. I might even buy one for my dog, I like it so much. But it's a really beautiful thing to look at, right? But it's actually really difficult to make. Can anyone take a guess as to why this is really hard to make? Any guesses? That's actually not such a bad guess. You're kind of getting to the point. Yes, exactly. That's exactly why. It's because the outside is made of wood. The problem with this isn't exactly that it's made of wood. You can make products that come from wood. However, getting them to consistently be in this shape is a real pain in the butt. And that's for a few reasons. At least in the case of wood, wood warps. So you might have a case that looks like this, but then it'll warp. And it'll change maybe by a few centimeters this way, a few centimeters that way, and before you know it, you've got thousands of cases that have warped and that have become unusable. This case is a variable element, that component isn't. And when you try to put that component into the case, well, it just doesn't happen very easily. It's not something that you can replicate very efficiently and reliably. And in this specific horror story, what happened was the client, they spent thousands of dollars on QC. They spent thousands of dollars trying to rework the product. And you know what, in the end they're just like, ah, screw this, let's just make a plastic one. And they ended up doing very well with the plastic one. But how do you prevent something like this from happening? From getting warped cases? Well, you can do what's called an incoming materials inspection. An incoming materials inspection looks at the raw materials as they're going into an order. And you can say, okay, this is good, this isn't good, this meets our requirements, this doesn't. And if you perform this inspection, then you'll know if you encounter defects later on that, okay, it's a production process that created these issues. It's not stemming from the raw materials themselves, it's stemming from something else that's going on. And one other thing that I would be remiss to not mention is how we can all clearly agree on these are bad pieces of wood. That's to our common sense, that's to our standards. But to a factory, they might say, oh no, there's no problem there. And that's a reflection of what you call chabuduo manufacturing. In case you don't know what chabuduo means, it means just about, or close enough. So they would look at this piece of wood and be like, oh no, chabuduo, we can use it, it's no problem. And when you hear things like that, that's when you know there's some real issues, because you don't want that in your products. You know that this could really displease your clients. And so by going in and performing an incoming materials inspection, you can maybe nip chabuduo culture in the bud, and same with a DuPro inspection. And what I've touched on so far is when to inspect. With a DuPro inspection, you detect problems early on, and you have a lot of opportunities to correct issues throughout the rest of your order. Whereas with a final inspection at the very end of your production run, well, you're detecting problems after everything's been done, and if you find issues, well, you're probably going to have to rework them. You don't prevent them, but that's indicative of the order's final quality. So there's something to be said for that. So let's change topic completely. Let's talk about a lovely evening. This does relate to quality control, trust me. So let's set the scene. You're on your honeymoon, you're with your significant other, everything is going really well, you just popped a bottle of champagne, and you're about to make do on your plan to have a kid in 9 months. Really, it's a great night, you're excited, but you know what? For whatever reason, your feet get a little cold. Your feet are a little chilly. And so you shuffle on over to your wardrobe to put on some slippers. Unfortunately, when you put on your slippers, you notice some serious discomfort. Can anyone guess what they think is a major issue for wearable products?
Size.
That's a good guess, but this is a really serious issue. Very serious.
Sharp point.
Oh, right on the money. It's needles. Needles are, of course, something you don't want to find in your slippers. That would really suck. That would be very painful. But in the specific quality horror story that I'm referencing here, what happened is a client, they worked with us for several months, and they said, yeah, we're very happy with the level of quality that you guys have helped us get to. We're good for now. And we didn't hear from them for several more months. Then we get this urgent email from them several months later saying, okay, holy crap, we need your help. We need a 100% inspection on our order of slippers because our customer found needles in it in the last order. What that touches on is a few things. One, quality control isn't just a one and done sort of thing. It needs to be ongoing, or else you can let all sorts of issues slide into your orders, and no one wants needles or any more serious issues like that. But one other thing that I have to mention is how this is a critical defect. That's actually specific QC terminology. There's 3 types of defects actually. This is another critical defect. It's probably a little hard to see from the back and maybe even here in front, but what you're looking at is a product with mildew on it. This is a batter spreader. So, excuse me, you know when you want to make pancakes, there's those electric griddles, you put some batter in, you close the top, and then you have a delicious pancake. Well, how would you like a pancake with some mildew on it? Probably not. But that's what you would get if you were to use this batter spreader, because there's mildew all over it. And that's one of the defining aspects of a critical defect. It renders the item unusable, or it could cause harm to the user or someone in the vicinity of the product. So how does this relate specifically to hardware startups? Well, hardware startups might encounter critical defects in the form of, say, a charger that gets too hot and could start a fire. Or it could be exposed wiring for some sort of electronic component. Or you could pull a Samsung and the product could just explode. All of these are critical defects and are definitely not acceptable to ship. The next one, a major defect. What you're looking at here is an incorrectly soldered PCB board. Now, the specific problem with this is that if you go to plug in your headphones and you want to listen to audio just from your headphones, Well, you won't be able to, because sound will come out through both the headphones and through the speakers. So that's not acceptable. You're only trying to listen to audio from the headphones. And a major product defect is one that adversely affects the performance or appearance of the product and will likely result in return. If a consumer bought this and tried to just listen through their earphones, they'd say, oh, what the hell, I can't do that, and so they might return it. That's a major defect. Now, the last type of defect is what's called a minor defect. It's a relatively small issue that does not affect the function or form of the item. Now, if we look closely at this, this is uneven. It's not a major problem. You can still turn the volume up, and you can still turn the volume down. However, if you were to, design this product and see it manufactured, you would know, okay, something's not right with this. This is not the ideal version. And so that's what defines a minor defect. Now, the last area of quality control that I would like to touch on for this presentation is how appearances can be deceiving. What you're looking at right here is a third-party lab testing report. I'll just tell you the horror story right away. Essentially, this Russian importer ordered about 100,000 phones, and all of them were unsellable because what he did was he wanted a rock-bottom price. So he negotiated with the supplier and he said, look, give me a better price, give me a better price. And you know what? They eventually gave him the price he wanted. But because of that rock-bottom price, he got rock-bottom components and rock-bottom quality. So bad, in fact, that the phone just wasn't sellable. If we look specifically at some of the reasons as to why it's unsellable, the THD plus N figure right there, that stands for total harmonic distortion. What that means is if you try to listen to audio through the bottom speaker, it will sound not crisp. It will sound maybe distorted or just not ideal. The problems for these earphones right here, they're not even getting enough power. So what would happen? You wouldn't be able to hear them, any audio from them. The internal microphone, well, the noise floor for that component is way too high. So if you were to try and call someone and use one of these phones, well, they wouldn't really be able to hear you because the audio that you're sending is muffled and it's just not ideal. This is more of the same order of phones, but this is for the camera. The image sharpness is at 0.18 cycles per pixel when it should be greater than 0.3. The effective resolution, let's look at the front. The effective resolution is 1.23 megapixels when it should be at 0.3. So how do you prevent something like this from happening? How do you prevent a factory from performing a switcheroo with your components and really screwing you over? Well, what you do is you perform lab testing at two different stages. One, you perform lab testing on the golden sample. And in case you don't know what a golden sample is, the golden sample is the ideal version of the product that you agree on with the factory. So you perform lab testing at that stage, and then at maybe 30% or 40% of the order's completion, you also perform lab testing. In this way, you have a benchmark. You can say, okay, this is what you guys promised me with the golden sample, and this is what we're actually getting. And if there's a difference, well, knowing is half the battle. You know that the factory tried to mess you up and to just screw you over. Another thing that I have to mention, to avoid a big problem that this guy encountered, he just pushed for a really low price. But I'm a firm believer in you get what you pay for. If you want a really low price, well, there will be someone that's willing to go to that low price, but there's no guarantee that the quality will also meet your expectations. So one way to set a reasonable price is to talk to manufacturers, get an idea as to what the product should be at, and then from there you can say, okay, factory A, you know what, we think X is a pretty reasonable price to pay for this. What do you think? And if they say right away, oh yeah, we can do that, then that's that response. Or they might say, well, we've got our own costs to consider. Maybe if you pay a little more, we can do that. It's all circumstantial. But I hope that by going and talking to some other factories and getting target pricing, you can avoid becoming a horror story. So that's my presentation, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope that this information can help you improve your manufacturing experience If you'd like to follow our WeChat public channel, you can just scan this QR code. If you'd like, you can send us an email there. If you scan our public channel, then you can get any of these ebooks for free. They're all about improving your product quality and improving your manufacturing experience. Conversely, if you'd like to add me on WeChat, you can scan that QR code right over there. You can also send me an email directly. I really do hope that this information has been beneficial to you. If you've got any other questions, just ask now or find me afterwards. We all really hope you don't become a horror story. Thank you.